Ladies and gentlemen, when the gun control doesn't succeed, try the National Guard. At least in New Mexico. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. We all remember the controversy when New Mexico's Governor Grisham tried to call a state of emergency to essentially block concealed carry from all of Albuquerque and Bernalillo counties in 2023. She used a public health order to basically try and suspend the Second Amendment. She cited a rise in violent crime as her reasoning. The move was immediately challenged in the courts, and Grisham eventually lost, choosing to amend her order to make it more specific and create gun-free zones in certain areas like public parks and playgrounds. She did not renew the order, and it expired in October 2024. Now, of course, none of these measures in that order really do anything for public safety or combat gang violence or cartels or other violent crime. In fact, where I grew up, gangs used to specifically congregate in public parks and disguise their drug exchanges and whatnot as children's birthday parties. So it looked like they were just happy families, and if the cops busted them, well, then now the cops are breaking up little kid birthday parties. If they're willing to hide their illegal activities behind children, I don't think that they're going to care about a public health order temporarily banning guns from parks. The fact is more obvious now than ever as New Mexico is taking a page from New York's playbook and is calling on the National Guard to come and help them fight crime via a new emergency declaration. This time, instead of a public health emergency, Governor Grisham has declared a full-on state of emergency. And along with it will come several dozen troops to be deployed along the Route 66 corridor starting in mid-May. But before I get into the rest of the details, this video is brought to you by the new Attorneys on Retainer program from the Attorneys for Freedom. There are some big changes that have been happening over at AOR. The first and foremost is that they are now solely dedicated to self-defense cases and nothing else, making them the first law firm in the nation to do this. And now the entire team is focused on every case they get. So if you are a member and find yourself in a self-defense situation, you get an entire team of lawyers on your side. So long as the incident happened after you became a member, you acted in defense of self or others, and you reasonably acted in good faith. It doesn't matter if you were in a gun-free zone, you didn't have a license, or are even technically a prohibited person, AOR will have your back. AOR has also added a bunch of new benefits, including red flag coverage, which I know some of you guys were asking about, record expungement, and a whole bunch of other goodies. Getting these extras does require an upgrade if you are already a member, but the price will stay the same for anyone becoming a first-time subscriber or upgrading coverage anytime before the end of the year. And now, part of your dues as a subscriber will be going towards pro bono cases and funding cases against gun control and other anti-freedom laws. In fact, they just filed their first brief this week. So to make sure that you have legal representation when the worst thing happens, go to my link down in the description and use code LibertyDoll to get $50 off your individual sign-up fee. Now, back to New Mexico. The governor's office says that they've already started training 60 to 70 National Guard members on their new deployment duties, which the office said would mainly be things that drain the time of sworn officers, like directing traffic. The troops can help secure crime scenes, distribute food and supplies to the homeless population throughout the corridor, transport prisoners, provide courthouse security, and run drone operations used for locating suspects or assessing incidents. Now, maybe it's just me, but I also feel like having the National Guard direct traffic is maybe a waste of resources. Do you know who directs traffic here in South Carolina? Someone on the road crews doing the construction, and it works just fine, even in the city. Now, I don't know about what these road crews are paid or what the cops are paid over in New Mexico, but some of these police officers that were directing traffic in Massachusetts make $100 an hour or more to direct traffic. Now, I don't know what these guardsmen are going to be paid, but again, I feel like there could be a better use of our tax dollars. During a press conference, the Albuquerque police chief and the mayor showed up with a chart saying crime is down this year due to the policing efforts they're already doing, but also said that it was a crucial time and that they need the National Guard so cops have more time to patrol the streets. On March 31st, the police chief put in a request for the National Guard, citing the fentanyl epidemic and a rise in juvenile violent crime. As just one example of the goings-on in New Mexico, in February, a video surfaced of a 12-year-old boy driving a stolen car with an 11-year-old in the passenger seat. The 11-year-old was waving a gun at a 15-year-old in the back seat while they both egged on the driver to run over a bicyclist on the road. So the kid did, hitting the bicyclist so hard that it shattered the windshield. Then drove away. When the cops found the 11-year-old, because that's who they found first, it turned out he'd been arrested the year before for a series of break-ins and burglaries. On top of that, he had also shot and wounded another teen, and not only had a bunch of guns, but also had a bulletproof vest he'd somehow stolen from a cop car. The boy and the other teens in the car were arrested in mid-March for the death of the bicyclist. All three were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, leaving the scene of an accident involving great bodily harm or death, and unlawful possession of a handgun by a person under 19. Stats from the police department itself do show an 11% reduction in aggravated assaults in 2024 compared to 2023, as well as a decrease in homicides, though those stats also show an increase in burglaries and drug offenses. And again, the government says that the problem is juvenile offenders. But the cops say that the problem is that the kids doing these crimes don't think that they'll face consequences. And for what it's worth, a lot of the juvenile defender laws were never designed to deal with 11-year-old kids accused of murder, because who would ever think that an 11-year-old kid would commit murder? Like, flat out, for shits and giggles murder. That is clearly a sign of a problem with society. Only a couple weeks ago, the DA told the AP that the problem is guns and social media, that kids on social media solve problems with guns, and so they show other kids that the way you solve problems is with guns. But that is a cultural issue. That's a failure of parenting. That's not the fault of guns or legal gun owners. And I would like to ask the county DA, Sam Bregman, what would Grisham's Albuquerque gun ban have done to stop this incident? But when a shooting at an unsanctioned car show between two rival groups ended in the deaths of a 16-year-old, 18-year-old, and 19-year-old who, by the way, they make sure to call the 18-year-old and 19-year-old men rather than children, despite that statistic about children, 18 and 19 years old, most likely being killed by guns than anything else. In this case, Grisham called not just for juvenile justice reform, but also complained about, quote, the amount of guns that find their ways into public parks and schools and churches and grocery stores and parties and cars. Once again implying that it is guns that are the problem, and when a politician blames guns, well, at the end of the day, they are blaming legal gun owners and punishing law-abiding gun owners the way that she did in order to try and stop criminals is a long-tried method that repeatedly fails to get results. And now, after all of that, we have the National Guard coming in to try to clean up the mess. Now, the ACLU is calling foul, saying that militarizing the police or having the military carry out police duties usually results in bad things for the populace, more abuses, more infringements on constitutional rights, etc. But Police Chief Medina says that he doesn't view the National Guard as a military force, but simply as trained professionals dedicated to supporting and protecting residents. Mayor Tim Keller says that using the National Guard has proven helpful in other states, and that if it works in New Mexico, it will continue without a determined end date. So as for how long the National Guard will be helping out with these policing efforts, we don't really know. The most recent similar incident we've seen has been out of New York, like I mentioned earlier, and in that case, twice Hochul had the National Guard show up to help police the subways, where she banned firearms, and the backlash was bad enough that she reeled that back in pretty quick. Because nothing says safety like a fully armed military member patting you down at the subway. Anyways, that is it for this video, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are new here. Ring that notification bell and drop a comment down below. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there and happy shooting.